Your college years are a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'd argue some of the best years of your life if you play your cards right. And in this video, I want to give you some of my tips on how you can best maximize your time in college so that you can have some of the most fun you've had in your life, but also set yourself up for a great life after. Hi, I'm Charismatic Chris, and I graduated from college not too long ago, getting 2 degrees in business and computer science, and these are some of the tips that I have kind of gleaned from my own experience of what I'm glad that I did, and then some things that I wish I did, and I want to share them all with you today so that when you're going into college or if you're already in college, you can use these tips to maximize your experience. All right, let's get into it. The first topic might seem obvious, but academics. You're first and foremost probably going to college to learn, and let's make sure you're doing it the right way. So obviously you want to succeed in your academics, and the first step to doing that is to be doing well in your classes. And I hope this goes without saying, but number one, make sure you're actually going to classes. Yes, being in college gives you so much freedom such that if you don't want to go to classes, you don't have to. You can wake up at whatever time you want to, but I'd argue you're paying so much in tuition. Actually take advantage that you're getting all of the value of the money that you're paying in. So make sure you're going to classes. Once you're at the class, make sure you're actually present. So don't just go to class and be on your computer zoning out. Make sure you're paying attention to classes. And I also think it's highly important to try and make connections, whether it's with your friends or with your professors. And when I say make connections with your professors, I don't mean sucking up to them, like going to their office all the time, just trying to talk to them. Unless you genuinely have something that you want to ask them or something of value that you want to talk to them about, don't just talk to them for the sake of talking to them. What I recommend instead is going to classes. The professors will notice the people who go to classes consistently, especially if it's a smaller class. And then once you're in the class, participate. So many kids are either feel introverted, don't feel the need to participate, don't want to participate, just want to skate by. And again, I'm not saying be the super annoying kid who just raises their hand at every single thing, whether they have something good to say or not. What I mean by participate is if you have something of value that you think you want to show at the class, don't hesitate to do so. If you don't understand something that the professor has said, no matter how dumb or trivial or basic you think it is, raise your hand and ask a question in class, or if you really don't want to, you can try and talk to them later, but I highly recommend asking the question the moment it pops into your head when they say something that you don't understand in class, because odds are so many of your classmates are having the same question or they don't understand the same thing, and they'll be so grateful to you, number one, for asking, and number two, your professor is literally there to teach you. I'd argue a good teacher does not care, or a good professor does not care how basic the question is that you ask, because it shows that you care about your learning enough that if you don't understand something, you're going to ask them to explain it to you. So that's how I recommend getting yourself on the radar of a professor, is not doing it intentionally again, but if you actually have a question, don't be afraid to ask it. If you have something of value, don't be afraid to raise your hand. And a lot of professors really appreciate this engagement, because just imagine you're in a Zoom room or in a physical classroom. If you were teaching a class, would you rather talk at students, or would you rather it be more of a lively discussion and actually know that the students you're teaching are listening to what you're saying? Outside of the classroom, make sure you're also utilizing the resources that are there for you in terms of office hours. So this might be held by the professor or by teacher's assistants, aka TAs, that are literally paid to help explain, help walk you through those assignments. So definitely go to those office hours if you have a question about either assignments or things that were discussed in class. Also utilize your classmates. So if you know people in the class and have their numbers, or maybe you're just, the first few days of the class, you sit down and you see the people around you, try and get their number so that when you're working on an assignment, or maybe you need to create a group for an assignment, you have people that you can reach out to and ask, hey, have you done this assignment? Do you want to work on it together? Or maybe you're stuck on a problem. These are people that you can reach out to for help directly if maybe you can't make the office hours, the TA or professor is inaccessible or not responding to your messages in that moment because it's, in the later hours of the day / the night. This is a great way to help both move you forward when you're stuck, and just to meet people who can potentially even become friends that you just hang out with outside of the classroom. And finally, the last big tip to be successful in your academics is to actually start these assignments early. I know so much of us young people are just like, it hurts, but procrastination is such a real thing. And I would really urge you to try and get out of that procrastinating mindset in college. And even if it's just opening the assignment and looking at it early on, like maybe the day you get the assignment or maybe the next day. If it's over a long period of time, I would get started on it, at least reading over what needs to be done so that you can either plan it through so you can get a start early, or you can see, oh, this is stuff that I need to do. I already know how to do it. So then you can plan your day around it. Or if you see it and it's something that I don't understand what I need to do, you're able to go to office hours and get the help that you need early on rather than waiting a little bit longer. Maybe you're halfway between when the assignment was given and when the deadline is, and you're already halfway in between that point and you have less time and you're like, oh my goodness, I actually don't know anything of what I need to do, or you're like, oh no, this is actually such a huge workload, I can't get it done. So at the very least, open the assignment and see what's required of you. And if you can, I would just try and knock out as much of that as possible earlier on, because you never know what's going to happen in between that time. You might get other assignments from other classes, you might get other exams, life gets thrown at you. So I would rather get things done early so you don't have to worry about them later on. The next thing I'd like to talk about is obviously what comes after college. You're probably there in college to hopefully get a good job, set yourself up for the career that you want afterwards, right? I'm sure the end goal is not to go to college and then just end there, right? So to set yourself up for the career that you want, I want to make sure that you're actively networking. And what I mean by this is not to make sleazy connections, but to put yourself out there. So a lot of schools will host career fairs. I would definitely go and attend these career fairs. They're a great way to see what companies are out there, a way for you to practice writing a resume, practice talking to recruiters, telling them about yourself, pitching yourself. And then it's also a great way, like hopefully you submit your resume, maybe you get an interview, a great way to just practice interviewing, even if it's not for the job, like the dream job that you want. Practicing interviewing with a real company with a job at stake is the best way to improve your real interview skills, because you actually get an idea of what the interview process is like and what kinds of questions the interviewers are going to ask you in a high pressure environment when your heart is beating. So it's just good practice in general. And these are connections. You never know when a recruiter might help you down the line for a job that you actually want. Maybe they switch to another company that you actually do care about. So make sure you're going to these opportunities, career fairs. These recruiters and companies literally pay your school or an organization to be there in order to talk to you. So make sure you're utilizing these opportunities. There's also a lot of conferences that are available for college students, and a lot of them are specifically to help students get jobs. So if you see those conferences, make sure you're also applying to those and trying to get into those opportunities. And the last part I want to talk about in this specific video is your social life. So I think, you've got three big parts of college. You've got the academics, which you're here for to study. You've got your career that you're preparing for afterwards. But outside of those two, it's your social life. What are you doing outside of studying for classes so that you're actually enjoying your time in college, so that you're developing yourself as a person, so that you're making friends, making connections, building a community outside of just studying, reading books all day, trying to get a job. It's the friends and the community that are really going to enrich your experience. So the first tip I want to highlight in the social part kind of relates to the academics before I get into the real social life part of it. But in terms of the academics, make sure you're getting your requisites out of the way. So those are your major specific classes, but I also highly recommend, if you have space in your schedule, like for example, at UT, when you pay full tuition, you are given 12 hours to 17 hours as a max. You minimum have to take 12 hours. Max, you can take 17 without having to pay more for extra credits. I highly recommend taking advantage of all 17 to take as many classes as you can, and this doesn't have to be specific to your major. Once you've filled your schedule with the required classes you have to take and maybe some electives so that you can graduate in however many years you want to graduate in, look for classes that interest you. For example, I took social dance, I took tennis, I took an acting class. Look for the things that interest you and try to take classes in things that interest you outside of your major, because these are going to be things where you are supplementing your interest and you're probably going to meet other people who have the same interest as you. So it's not only a way to maximize the tuition that you're paying, which depending on your school could be a very large sum of money. You're taking classes in something that you actually care about, so you're actually motivated to a higher extent to go to these classes. And then the people you're meeting, it's just a wider net of people that you're meeting, so you're not just taking classes with only the CS kids or only the business kids or only the engineering kids or whatever major that you're in, but you're expanding out. You're meeting, for example, if you take an acting class, you're meeting the theater kids. If you take a running class, you're meeting kids from all majors who like running, which is probably an interest that you have, who can actually become friends that you hang out with outside of class. So highly recommend looking into classes that are outside of your major that fit your interest. Okay, I'm done with the academic section now. I'll actually talk about social life. So in terms of the social life, what I want to make sure you do is definitely join as many clubs as possible, especially if you're a freshman, that relates to your interests. Don't join clubs just because you see everybody else is doing them. I would join as many clubs that you find interesting as possible, and don't let the fees deter you from joining those clubs, because the fees, if you think about it, are so small compared to the fee, like the large fee that you're already paying for tuition. And these are the opportunities that are offered to you only if you're a student. So you're already paying the large sum of money of tuition to be at this school, to have access to all of these clubs. Don't let the small, it might seem large, like 60, 100 per semester, or whatever the fee is. Don't let the fee deter you from joining a club, and don't pick a club based on what the fees are. Like, oh, this club has a lower fee than this one. Don't let those fees deter you. Maybe the club that has a higher fee has more opportunities. They do more events together, so it's a more tight-knit community. Don't join the free clubs only because they're free. Yes, there are great free clubs, but don't let that be the only reason you join the club, and don't join only the free clubs if there's a club that you want to join but has a fee. Those are going to be really great opportunities for you to meet a lot of people with your same interest, because if you're in a club, you're probably there because you actually care about whatever the club is about. So you're going to meet a lot of like-minded people who are all around the same age as you. These could become lifelong friends, people that you hang out with after you graduate college, and even when you're in college, just people to make your experience day to day, during the week, on the weekends, people to hang out with. It's going to make your experience so much better. And finally, my last tip on social life is going to be on dorm life. And this is going to vary by school and by culture, but I would highly recommend, at least minimum for your first year as a freshman, stay in the dorms. And if it's culturally appropriate for like students to stay on in the dorms after freshman year, I would recommend staying in the dorms past freshman year till senior year if possible. I would definitely recommend staying in the dorms your freshman year, because friendships come from proximity, and you're gonna make so many friends just hanging out in the dorms. I read an article or something the other day that says the likelihood of you being friends with somebody who lives directly across from you in the dorms is so much higher than you being friends with somebody, for example, who lives down the hall, and that's within the same dorm. Kind of follow the culture of where your group of people live, because really proximity makes friendships. All right, that's it for this video in terms of tips I have for your academic life, your after college corporate life, and your social life in college. Your college years are really what you make of it, and hopefully these tips will help you make it an even better experience than what it might have been before you watched this video. If you found any of the tips helpful in this video, please considering liking the video, please considering subscribing if you'd like to, and let me know in the comments below if you either have any questions, or let me know what you're most looking forward to in college, what you love about college right now, or maybe some things that are confusing you about college and maybe you're looking for some advice. So hopefully this video helped. I apologize if it's a little bit longer. I tend to rant a little bit more about topics that I'm passionate and have a lot of thoughts about, but thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful day.